All right, this is homework section 2.2, question 4. In this problem, they've given us the winning coalition. So they didn't give us any numbers. We don't have to figure out what the winning coalitions are. They've given them to us. And we have to figure out who is critical. And this is a little tricky to do without any numbers, because usually we just figure out, do the players in the coalition, meet the quota, and who can leave and who can't. So if these are we're going to be a little sneaky here. If these are all the winning coalitions, there are no one-player winning coalitions, which means no one player by themselves could meet the quota, which means that any two-player coalition, both players must be critical, right? So player 1 and player 2 together meet the quota. But we know that player 1 does not and player 2 does not, because if they did, there would be another winning coalition that just listed player 1, right? If player 1 had enough votes to meet the quota by themselves, they would be a winning coalition. They're not, which means that player 1 does not have enough by themselves. So player 2 can't leave and player 1 can't leave. We know that neither of those players has enough to meet the quota by themselves. Same with player 1 and player 3. This two-player coalition, they must both be critical. And then player 1, player 2, and player 3, we don't have numbers, but we know that player 1 and player 2 together have enough because they are a winning coalition on their own. So player 1 and player 2, that means player 3 is not critical. Okay, player 3 is not critical because they can walk away, and player 1 and player 2, we know they're a winning coalition. What would happen if player 2 walked away? I'd be left with player 1 and player 3 only, and we know that player 1 and player 3 is a winning coalition. So player 2 can leave, and we'd still have a winning coalition. So neither 3 nor 2 are critical. What about player 1? If player 1 walked away, I'd be left with just player 2 and player 3. Now, player 2 and player 3, if they had enough votes to meet the quota, they would be listed as a winning coalition, but they're not, right? If player 2 and player 3 together had enough votes to meet the quota, they would be listed as a winning coalition, a fourth winning coalition, but they're not, which means that 2 and 3 together do not have enough votes to meet the quota, which means that player 1 is critical. Player 1 can't leave. If player 1 left, only 2 and 3 would remain. They are not a winning coalition. So that has to be the critical players. So I've checked off B here. Each of the two persons, they're both critical, and player 1 is the only critical player in the third. And then to calculate the Banzhaf power index, so beta 1, count up how many times player 1 was underlined. 1, 2, 3. And divide by the number of times anyone was underlined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So beta 1 is 3 out of 5. Beta 2, also out of 5. How many times was player 2 underlined? Just once. And then beta 3, also out of 5. How many times was player 3 underlined? Just once. And those fractions are already as simplified as possible. They're already reduced. So that is the answer.